we just sit here for the next 45 minutes and do nothing? I mean, could we just sit here for 45 minutes and do absolutely nothing? I know it might be boring, but it would be, in a sense, productive. Productive how? Well, it's 6 p.m. on May 29th, 2021. How could doing nothing be productive? Here is the answer to the riddle. Because doing nothing is about all I want to do. Voila. The answer to the riddle. Hi, Becky, Kathy, Chris, anybody else out there. I'm not violating any copyright laws. One night without violating any copyright laws. 2 nights. I copyright this. I can play it all evening. No copyright violation because I own my own product. Hi, Ann. Oh, God. So let me tell you about the T-shirt and the title of tonight's podcast. This is Ken Goldberg's Law and Disorder, and as happenstance would have it, I'm Ken Goldberg. All right. Tour dysfunctional and a barge. I have an explanation. Since I see myself on a podcast night after night, and I'm tired of looking at the same, 10 T-shirts. So I dug around, I found some more T-shirts. So I wore Locomotion T-shirts the last 2 nights, a yellow one and an orange one. And I explained to you they've been sitting, and this is the truth, sitting in drawers for over 40 years, maybe 45 years, something like that, right? I mean, last time I was working with Locomotion was 1979. All right. This, I don't remember what year, it's on the back. Les Tours Dysfonctionales was the entire Goldberg family minus my brother, who does not travel overseas. So what happened was, after my dad passed away, my mother had this brilliant idea: take us all on a cruise. Children's spouses, grandchildren's spouses, grandchildren's children. Were there any great-grandchildren there? I don't remember. That wasn't that important. It really doesn't speak to the issue of my brother-in-law, Al, went ahead and made T-shirts for the event and called it on his own. It was not a family vote. Les Tours Dysfonctionales. He thinks that my family is dysfunctional. He and my other brother-in-law used to like to sit at the family dinner. Well, it's really after the family dinner when you're talking more and eating less. And they'd say, oh, look, the Goldberg family's playing Trivial Dispute again. Ha ha ha. But I guess it was kind of true. But we don't do that anymore. And I don't know why. I personally am not good at Trivial Dispute anymore because you had to get fired up. And it's really hard for me to get fired up about arguing with my sisters. My brother used to call it in. And this is the truth. He lived away and in California. He had moved away, but he wanted to be at the family dinner. So back then, there were no cell phones. He used to ask that we call him and put the phone in the middle of the dining table so he could listen in while we argued. So perhaps my family is dysfunctional. Apparently, on the back is a map of some of the spots we traveled. We traveled down a river called the River Yann in France. So I'll tell you just a little bit about this, and I'm not going to belabor it. I and my wife landed in Paris, as did everybody else. So we landed in Paris, and I don't remember if we caught the barge in Paris or if we caught it somewhere else. I don't remember. Did we have to take transportation to the boat? I don't know. It's a barge. Who cares? You don't. I don't. All right. So thank you. Thank you. Thank you for laughing. Thank you for calling this a great shirt. So this boat was the only one we could. This is all reversed. This is the only one we could find that would hold the entire family and only our entire family. We didn't really, when our family gets together playing Trivial Dispute, it's not cool to have strangers around. So this boat had a captain who ran the boat and had a cook and had some other staff. And it was delightful. It was delightful. Every day we ate on the boat, all our meals. You could eat on shore. We traveled down the river all day, every day. Problem is, it rained all day, every day. So imagine 14 people, 14 family members on a barge for a week in the rain. Ugly, freaking ugly. My mother said at the end, never again. And she was not talking about the Holocaust. She was talking about Les Tours Dysfonctionnels, never the whole family going to be together on a vacay again. This is the origins of that shirt. So on the barge itself, they would feed us, and they were, if you've ever been to France or England or some of these places where they have barges, if you haven't, do it because there's usually somebody who really knows how to cook. Lori and I did a barge in England, and we traveled for a week on a barge, and the husband and the wife lived in the back of the barge and we lived in the front, a small barge. Well, barge is by almost always small. So what happens is back in the old days, I know England better. All the waterways had towpaths, and barges were pulled down the towpaths by horses or mules or something. So they, preceding motors and all that, transportation of product, stuff, commercial, traveled down the canals, traveled down the rivers and so the boats had to be narrow because these are narrow waterways. England's very cool because when they no longer needed the waterways because there were other means of transportation, trucks and trains and all that, they converted their canals and their towpaths into recreational towpaths. It's tremendous. You go all kinds of places, and there's this really nice, decent place to walk. You got water on one side, you got an embankment on the other side. You can skip the city. Well, the River Yann's a little different. It's wider, but they still use a lot of barges. And so we were there, and we ate good, and whatever scenery you can look outside the window. But the plan to get off the boat periodically or daily and walk and talk, and they had some bicycles on the boat that you could use. That Lori and I had intended to use. Lori was my wife. None of it. We walked once or twice in some small towns. We got washed out by the rain, and I think we hit new heights of Trivial Dispute. My niece on that trip made a commitment to stop talking to her Uncle Ken, moi. You see how I worked French into that, moi, for the next 20 years. Yes, next 20 years. She didn't speak to me, and of course, I didn't speak to her. Bicycling paths too, yes. Well, they're right. I don't know that there's a difference, Em, but I know that what they call them recreational pathways. They don't call them towpaths anymore. They don't call them walking paths. They call them recreational paths. But I would, Europe is more friendly in many regards for bicycles, but bicycles are often found, navigating traffic in Europe more so than here. And I'm scared. I tell you where I was really scared was Thailand. You saw bicycles, and you didn't see any. I saw maybe a dozen modern bicycles like you would see here, drop bars and, young guys in spandex training or something. Otherwise, you saw old fashioned bicycles with baskets and people carrying all kinds of stuff like you wouldn't believe. And so they're tooling along in traffic, Chiang Mai traffic. I wasn't going to try it. The monks who knew that I was into bicycling asked if I wanted to do that. Like, yeah, no way. I didn't want to drive in Thailand. I didn't want to bike. I barely wanted to walk. It's just chaotic. So that's my story. I'm sticking to it. All right. So let's get into a little bit about the music today. Nothing to get hung about. How did that come about? I was sitting here. It was about 5:45. I was completely toast. I was laying in bed until about 5:40. I've been laying in bed just watching TV because I feel I did enough today. I went to bed at midnight. I got up at 4:30. 4.5 hours is not good. It's not good even for somebody who doesn't sleep well, and that's me. But I went to bed late. I shouldn't have. I got up early, 4:30. I'm out the door by actually, yeah, about 4:30. My alarm goes off. I'm out of the house by 5:05 on my what they call Trek Pilot. It's a road bike, no motor, not an e-bike. And I meet my friend Paul that we ride. Team stays on. Yeah, team stays on roofing. Captain Paul Graham, and he guided us in our typical tortured path from our homes to McKinney, Texas. That was 30 miles. And then we came back, and that was 26 miles because we cut out a piece. So we had 56.8 when I got home. And then I had like, oh my God, I'm going to go get some barbecue at the farmer's market. It's a mile and a half away. I'm going to get on my other bike because I'm sick of riding the bike, the Trek Pilot. So I pop a battery in, I get all set, and I decide, you know what? They gave me their phone number at the barbecue place because the last 2 weeks they were out of barbecue by the time I got there, right? So I call them and they answer, and I said, hey, you at the farmer's market? They're like, no, we're having a graduation party for our child. We're not there today. I'm like, oh man, I don't have any food in the refrigerator, just frozen stuff, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go out and eat. You know what? I'm going to go to the White Rock Ale House down by White Rock Lake and get me a burger. It's a charbroiled burger. I haven't been there in a while. So I jump on the bike and then I brainstorm. You know what? I know Chris and Becky, those crazy kids. They might be out bicycling because Becky got herself an e-bike. People with e-bikes are the coolest kids on the block. So, in fact, Chris says, yeah, we're on our way down. We're going to go to White Rock. I said, well, I see you there. So I bike down. I quickly run into them, and they're going to go around the lake. Well, I'll go with you. What the heck? Round the lake. It's 9 miles. Round the lake. And then, actually, it's a little longer than that, the route we took. And then we went to eat. White Rock Ale House. Got ourselves some food, some burgers, some tree hugger burger. That's a vegetarian burger. That's Becky. I like vegetarian food too, but you know what? I was in no mood. Give me some raw meat. And so we had lunch, and then Chris rode with me on my way home. I got home. I looked down at my thing. This is my thing. This is my Garmin computer that I carry on my bicycle. It tells me how far I've gone, tells me how fast I turn the pedals and all that, right? So, power up. It was 91 miles. I'm like, it's time to chill, right? You can imagine you feel funky, take a shower. Now what? Well, you all know anytime you've done something for 7 hours that involved movement, hiking, biking, walking, I don't know, whatever, right? You said to yourself, you know what? I'm going to relax for a little bit. Just going to take it easy. So after the shower, I laid down. I didn't really sleep. I watched TV, but I'm going to tell you something. I had no desire to ever get up again. I was done. I was done, right? And I'm sitting there watching the clock, and I'm like, well, you got this podcast to do. You really should do the podcast. All right. So I'm like thinking, well, there's nothing to get hung about. Just do it. Nothing to get hung about. Thus, the title of today's show, Nothing to Get Hung About. And of course, what song do you play when you think of the line, nothing to get hung about? You think Strawberry Fields Forever. So you only barely got a song posted today by the hair of my chinny chin chin, because I was not going to sit here 1 minute longer than necessary to identify musical links for y'all. To be honest, I didn't care. You know, you guys can find your own music, right? I know you can. Amazing 91 miles. Well, thank you, Becky. Of course, as you now know, 30 something of those were electricity. Because let's do day, you know. So, but yeah, I mean, combined, I don't remember, but I think it said I was in motion for 7 hours. So I stopped for breakfast at 7:30 this morning, 2 hours after, about almost 2.5 hours after I started, and lunch was probably around 1:30. So that was several hours later, and so here I am, toast. You can stick a fork in me. I'm done, man. I got nothing to give. I gave it. I gave it the office. I gave it school. I don't know, man. But I ain't got nothing. So here's what I'm thinking. Y'all need to step up. Y'all need to step up, whether it's Chris or it's Ann or Mark and Ann. We got two Anns usually when Ann sisters here. Anyways, what I'm saying is, this is your moment. Step up and comment or critique or question. This will naturally stimulate synapses in my brain, even the ones that have already gone to sleep for the day, because there's something magical about a query, isn't there? I mean, you could be sitting, nodding, and just, chilling like a villain, and somebody asks you a question through the fog. You're like, huh? A question. And then you process it, and you open one eye maybe, and you answer the question, because that's our inclination, is to answer questions when they come from the proper source, not just, some crazy person. Chris, you sent me 2 songs. You did. And let's see what Chris sent. It's nothing to get hung about. Strawberry fields forever. Let's see. There's a problem signing into your account, Ken. I don't understand. Well, so there's one by Coco Taylor. Those of you from Chicago know Coco Taylor for sure, right? She used to perform a lot over at Teresa's Lounge, and she may have performed at the Checkerboard Lounge. She was pretty popular. Here we go. And the other ones, yes. Oh my God, I don't want to hear a commercial. So I like Yes. Um, I don't know how many other people wasn't what's his name from Emerson Lake and Palmer in Yes at some point. I don't know. Comment, your bike riding posture is very good. I don't know if it is. Somewhere along the way this morning, I was struggling. I was really, really, really struggling on the way out. I felt like the wind was in my face. I felt like Paul was going too fast. I felt like I don't want to do this. I should have bought an e-bike. I shouldn't be on an analog bike. This sucks. I really struggled. And Paul's like, well, blah, 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 blah. Arch your back, shoulders back, arch your back. And I'm like, arch my back? I've never arched my back while I'm on the thing. So I tried to arch my back. I don't know if that did any good or not. Anyways, that's what I was doing. I hear music. So so I don't know. Then he said, you have to use your imagination, Ken. Imagine we're having fun, he said. Imagine this is easy, or something like that. He was imagining. And I'm like, oh, yeah. You know what I'm imagining? I didn't go there, right? Because you can imagine what I was imagining when I'm dying. And he's like, imagine this is, we're having a good time. Imagine this hill because by the way, McKinney has hills, numerous hills. Anne says, we have stirred a memory of her bike trip that she took in France in 2008. Wow, that had to be cool. I had hoped, because back when I went to England in 85 to go to school, I was in good shape. So I jogged every morning. I got up in Oxford and I would run along the Tarwell River. And it was so nice in the early morning. The ducks would just like wake me up, right? A lot of times they're sleeping that early, but then they're like this. They're picking at their feathers, and the little ones are clustered around the big ones. It's cute as a button. And so and then I went back on my honeymoon and I walked. So we took a barge, and the barge took us from, I don't know, Chester. No, we ended in Chester, Manchester to Chester, something like that. And the barge only goes 3 to 4 miles an hour. So you just walk on the towpath. And if you want to get on the boat, you want to use the toilet on the boat, you want to get a snack or something, you just waved and the barge pulled over. Because remember, I told you there's only two people running that boat, the wife who's cooking and the husband who's driving. So that was fabulous. So I walked every day, most of the day. And when I was tired of walking, it was a great trip. And then I went to Tuscany, Italy with Lori, and we hiked Tuscany, which is a lot of vineyards. It's very steep. It's very hilly. And I've been reluctant to go bike ride. So someday we'll have to talk about bike tripping in France. Malcolm Nichols bikes Ireland and Scotland. And I mean, he's just like this crazy outdoor guy. He's from Hyde Park too. So I am glad that I stirred memories. And now, let me say this. That worked well. Becky made a comment. It stimulated me thinking about Paul this morning, telling me about my posture to arch my back. I don't know if that's something you really should do. He said it, and I thought, am I supposed to be doing that? And then and now Anne's got me thinking about biking. Yeah, biking in Europe. So, oh, and then the other thing I was going to do, Anne, I got information on hiking the Alps from Eastern Europe. So the Alps run through Eastern Europe and Western Europe. If you go to Eastern Europe, they have hut to hut journeys, and they're much cheaper than Western Europe. And so I was eager to do that, and I wrote a company I read about, and they wrote me back, but I never made it. So it's still on the bucket list. Malcolm Nichols is in a league of his own. I mean, he's my age, or maybe a year older, and he's got six pack. He's just, he's building his van. He's remodeling a van to make it into a house. He's riding a boat out into the ocean on the Northwest. He just gets and goes over to Europe and bikes and hikes. And I don't know. He's in a league of his own. So I'm sorry. So we were talking about Malcolm. We were talking about tripping. We were talking about hallucinogens. No, not that kind of tripping. We're talking about tripping Europe and stuff. Now, having said all this, if you haven't tripped Europe, Asia, you may think, Ken, spoiled kid. Talk about going to England to go to school, went back to England on his honeymoon, went to Italy with his ex-wife, went to France with his family. And in contrast to most of the people I grew up with, I have lived in large measure a privileged life. I was lucky enough to be born into a family that owned a business in Chicago and a successful business. I have always been keenly aware. Well, there was the time when my friends were going to kidnap me and hold me for ransom because they said, you're the only one who came from a family with money. Made sense to me, but it was, they told me this long after the plan had evaporated. They didn't tell me that while they had planned that I would have had some choice words for them. So I'm always been aware that I've been able to do things, see things that some people will never get to do or see. But the value in that is sometimes when you're talking to somebody who hasn't done some of this cool stuff, Anne's obviously done some cool stuff, some of you others have. Here's the thing. Sometimes when you report on your experiences, you stimulate the imagination of another person and give them the aspiration to do things that maybe they weren't going to do, but they will make it. So maybe somebody who's never been to Europe listens to a story about the topaz and the biking and the walking and the barging and says, wow, that's really cool. You know what? Someday I'm going to get there. Someday I'd like to go to Thailand and see Chiang Mai. And I saw your photos, Ken, and looks incredible. All those Buddhist temples, some up in the sky and lots of them in the city. That's something I want to experience too. So I'm hoping that when I share through my blog or my photos on the internet, I'm really not doing it kind of like cock-a-doodle-doo, the rooster that walks with his chest out. They call on the streets, if you're that kind of guy, they call it, it's not uncommon to be called gallo, rooster, right? Well, it is uncommon if you're Anglo. For Puerto Ricans, they would a lot of times, somebody had the nickname gallo, okay? And so to walk with that kind of cocky, pa, 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 pa. Now, my posts are intended to share the fun and then to also stimulate other people's imaginations. I went to London and Scotland when my son got married. Did your son get married in London or Scotland? And what happened? I've met your son. I don't recall any conversation about his wife. I'm guessing he's not still married. And I don't mean to bring up a sore spot, Kathy. I just, when you say your son got married, I'm kind of like, she only got the one son that I know of, and he never mentions a wife. So I guess that was some time ago. So you got to go over there, right? And I'm sure others of you have been to Europe in one way, shape, form, or another. Or you've been to Mexico, or you've been to Puerto Rico, or you've been to South America. Maybe you've been to the Galapagos Islands. Maybe you've been to Ecuador or Costa Rica. These are all nice, fascinating places. Do you know that part of being an intelligent, progressive human being is to have traveled, to have seen things which stimulate your imagination, stimulate your thirst for knowledge. And so people who read and travel, historically, typically, studies of some sort show that these are people whose IQs are stimulated and remain strong and resonant, whereas people who may have had an IQ, well, we all have an IQ. People who have had normal IQs can oftentimes find themselves at a disadvantage and literally losing intelligence quotient because they haven't traveled, they haven't read, because they're not in an environment where the reading or traveling is done. It truly, truly helps if you have children in your house to have books on the shelves, to encourage reading, to encourage travel. So if you don't want to travel with the kid, and the kid graduates from high school and there's a bunch of them taking a trip, it's like, here, I'm helping you out. Get going. Take your backpack. You can crash on floors. When I got out of law school, some of these kids most of them were around 26 years old. They'd gone high school to college to law school. So what is that? So you graduate when you're around 18 and 422, 320. I don't know how old you're supposed to be, but I think the average kind of age of the young men and women that I went to law school with, they graduated about the age of 26, 25, right? And I'm sitting there listening to them after uh, the last semester is pretty much over. People have chosen their jobs. They're going to work for this law firm or that law firm. I ain't going to work for no law firm. Ken Goldberg's going to put up a sign that says Ken Goldberg and Associates, attorneys at law. And I'm talking to this one kid, bright guy, Drew was his name. What are you going to do, Drew? Well, I think I'm going to go back to Minnesota. Okay, so what's the hang up? What do you mean you think you're going to? Well, I don't really have any money. Maybe I should get a job here and work for a year or so. I said, do you want to work here? No, I want to go back to Minnesota where I'm from. I'm like, so what's the hang up? Well, I don't have a place to stay. All I can do is sleep on people's floors. I said, when you are 26, that's when you sleep on your friend's floor. When you're 36, which is about the age when I graduated, that's sleeping on the floor stuff. That's gotten old at that point, right? Let's see. Kathy, the wedding was in Edinburgh, Scotland, but they are no longer married. I met her. Wow. Okay, Kathy. And Becky's been to Germany, Canada, and Mexico. All right. Becky, she traveled to an airport in London and hung out there for 8 hours. Marvelous, marvelous. I have never really traveled to airports to hang out. It was actually for an 8-hour layover. That's too long. If I had an 8-hour layover, I believe there'd be a hotel involved in that logistical maneuver. So, again, if you were young enough, right? Because when I went over to England as a student in '85, I was 30 some years old. I took a backpack. Um, I took a backpack for the entire summer that I was there. I carry on. I didn't have anything checked. I had a kind of a suitcase, soft suitcase. It was really a backpack, and I took that. And when I went back over with Lori to England, and I don't know, maybe Italy, I don't remember, but anyways, We did the same thing. She got one of those backpacks, and we used those. That's so much. It's easy when you're young. 30s, of course. I'm telling you now. I was 40, and I'm still doing it when I was with Lori, because Lori and I got married when I was 40 years old. Um, so you know, kids, if you're here and you're listening, kids, get out, do it now. Okay, get out there, sleep on floors, travel with backpacks, go wherever you want to go. That's all I'm saying. They had a great lounge where we were able to shower. It was a whole crazy trip for work with weather issues through flight changes and on and on. Yeah, Ken, don't play that, Becky. I need to travel. Now, 68, I need to travel smooth. It needs to be like silk, right? Smooth. Now, I am not good with, when I went to Chiang Mai, I probably have mentioned this. Somebody else booked me, and they knew I didn't like to fly, and they felt like getting me from point A to point B as fast as possible would be advantageous. It wasn't, but I didn't know. I just let them book it. So I flew from Dallas to LA. LA. No, San Francisco, excuse me, San Francisco. When I got to San Francisco, because of a delay in Dallas, when I got to San Francisco, I had 1 hour to get out of the domestic terminal with my suitcase, because I only had carry on, run, run through San Francisco's ginormous airport to get to the international terminal, get through security, and I was burnt. I was toast. I didn't take off till 11 o'clock at night in Dallas, if I recall correctly. So I get to San Francisco a couple hours later. It's the middle of the night. Now, I did a little better when I landed in Hong Kong. I had a couple of hours. I was able to get to my gate and sit down and regroup. So, so getting, and then from Hong Kong to Chiang Mai. So I had Dallas to San Francisco, San Francisco to Hong Kong to Chiang Mai. Coming back, God bless the U.S. government. Okay, they canceled my flight because I was coming in through Hong Kong, coming back through Hong Kong. And the U.S. government said no flights will arrive from Hong Kong until further notice. So my itinerary was canceled. The blessing was that I was then able to rebook myself on Korean Airlines and cut out one whole flight. Instead of going from Chiang Mai to Hong Kong to LA to Dallas, I went to Seoul, Korea, and Seoul, Korea directly to Dallas. I did business class. I was a made guy coming home, man. Hi, Aaron, if you're still there. Rachel, she's been to Portugal, stayed in a privately staffed castle, Italy and Germany, and most islands outside of the U.S. Okay. And Ann says, don't travel like that after age 50 unless you're Malcolm Nichols. Everyone else should stay in hotels. Becky, I was low woman on the totem pole then and was with the group and they didn't ask my opinion. I understand that too. I've been in that situation. But yeah, well, as you get older, Becky, and you're getting older now, I'm not suggesting you're old, you're much younger than I am. You get to the point where it's like, I know you didn't ask my opinion, but I'm going to give it anyways. And, eventually you are empowered to stand up for yourself and go, yo, 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 no, 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 I'm not a kid. I have literally done that. I've literally looked at a group that I was engaged with, not particularly travel, but whatever it was, and said, I'm not 12 years old. I'm not doing this. You know, I'm a grown man. I'm going home. If we can't work this, I'm going home. I don't have to go anywhere with anybody anytime. I don't care if it's school. I don't care if it's work. Of course, I have a little bit of a rebellious streak in me. It's a little one. It's a little one. Most of you have never seen it because I hide it. I hide it. You wouldn't know. But yeah, yeah. I sometimes I just go against the grain. And good. Becky says she agrees. They would hear her opinion now. See, age does come with some privilege, or at least it comes with some sense. So, all right, we're almost to the end of this whole conversation. What an illuminating conversation. Find out that Rachel's been to Tahiti and Bora Bora, and Anne bicycled France, and Becky's been to Germany, and Kathy's been to Scotland, and Edinburgh, Scotland, and England. And, I didn't know this about any of you. I might have read on Anne's Facebook something about her trip to France on a bicycle, but it didn't really sink in. You're scrolling, so I might have known some of this. This was my hope, was that if I just showed up at 6 o'clock for 45 minutes and invited conversation, invited comments, invited you to stimulate me, you'd come through. And it's kind of cool, man. I think I got to do more of this because really, there's a limited amount of crap we can talk about that's in my head, right? I mean, I'll give you that there's a lot of insanity I could put out there, and it's not always, yeah, it's always crazy stuff, but uh, there's a continuum of crazy. There's our kind of crazy, us as a group, and then there's Ken's crazy that may be a little advanced, right? Um, but what happens is, we were talking. Who's we? You got a mouse in your pocket, Ken? No, I was talking to somebody about. Oh, okay, I got it. So AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, has this structure where they have no leaders. In case you didn't know that, there are no leaders. What they have are what they call trusted servants. So if you get elected to do something in AA, you need to think yourself as trusted servants because you ain't running shit. But they have committees that will run either a meeting or a group. And so we have a kind of a dialogue going on. There's some controversy, right? And so I was engaged in this controversy, and somebody said, well, you should know that Jack, I'm making that name up, Jack decided as chairman of the committee that he was going to modify a rule. And my reaction was, yeah, no, Jack doesn't do that. The bylaws say the committee's got that power, not a member of the committee. I said, you can't do that. And I said, and there's kind of a reason for that. Although I don't often agree with any committee, the fact is it's like a jury. The reason that I pick a jury and not a judge to hear a case is because I learned early in my career that a jury brings with it, on average, 500 years of experience and knowledge in life. A judge, especially in Chicago, is typically just an Irish or Italian jerk, white privileged jerk who got to be a judge. He's not going to be helpful. So there's a reason for having committees and harnessing the energy of a committee and abiding by the committee. And I can do that today. So my rebellious spirit can be corralled by my allegiance to community. So I say to people, when I'm in court and I'm defending somebody, it's just me and him. I'm gonna break all kind of rules. I'm not talking about lying or perjury. I'm talking about judge says you can't do that. And I'm like, well, judge, you need to stop me, right? But when it comes to a community that I have signed into and they have rules, I buy in. I buy in because that's what you do. When I was in treatment back in '82, I came back from a meeting one night. We were supposed to sign out at night, go to a meeting for an hour, and come back, right? And you had some leeway because you had to get to me, you had to come back from the meeting. So I come back, and we're all group of us all coming into the hospital. That's where the treatment center was in the Northwestern Hospital. About the same time, you sign in at the nursing station, and then you go to your room or sit around and talk to people, whatever. So I got to my room, at some point, and I'm getting ready for bed, and my roommate says, I have a message for you. And I'm like, well, what's the message? And he says, well, these two guys, these two younger guys, they said if you tell the nurse they weren't at the meeting you were at, they're going to kick your ass. And I said to him, listen, you need to understand something. Uh, I don't know what they did, and I'm not interested in what they did. I agreed to terms when I came here. Don't use drugs, go to the meetings, do what they told me to do. 3 weeks. I signed in. I said, I'm going to do that. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go to the nursing station, and I'm going to tell them that these guys didn't go to the meeting I went to, and I didn't even know they were supposed to be at the meeting I went to because it wasn't a shared thing. And he's like, what are you doing? I'm like, yeah, well, you can't make me feel bad about being a member of the community, a member in good standing. And I say that whether it's AA or whether it's here, I want to be a member in good standing of this community, this internet community that we started back in March a year ago. All right, it's 6:46. I've blown right through the meta, but I'm not going to forego the meta. I'm going to do the meta. I'm going to bring my hands together before my heart. I'm going to close my eyes and bow my head and take a deep breath. And I'm going to think, may I be happy, healthy, free from harm, free from anger, anxiety, and fear. May this practice bring me more peace and comfort in my life. May my mother and father, all my family and friends be happy, be healthy, be free from all harm. May they too discover the path that guides them to a life of greater peace and comfort. And to those persons that I harbor any ill will towards, whatever difficulty I have with that person in this moment, I can set it aside and send them goodwill that they may be happy, healthy, and free from harm, living their lives in peace and comfort. And to all living beings throughout the entire universe, may all beings be the recipient of our collective compassion. May they be happy, healthy, free from harm, able to live out their lives in safety, comfort, and peace. Satu, Satu, Satu. Thank you, Becky. I know you got me. Thanks, Kathy. Well, thank you, Chris. I appreciate your friendship. It's been delightful. Been absolutely delightful. And I really enjoyed meeting Becky today in person for the first time. I felt like I'd seen her numerous times. Oh, wait, I had seen her numerous times. I lied. All right, Anne and Rachel and Becky and Chris and I don't know, Joan, maybe Aaron, maybe Anne and Mark, Kathy, maybe Ray Dean will show up later. Who knows who's lurking in the shadows, right? What's that song? Hanging in the shadows, baby. Da, 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 da. I'll have to look that one up and use that pretty soon. Da, 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 have you been saved? I don't even know what song that is, but it's in my head. The tune's in my head. The lyrics are missing. Thank you. It's Saturday night. Tie one on, tie one off. It doesn't really matter now. I'm not coming back till Monday. I got a party to go to tomorrow night. That's right. Let me say this one more time before I sign off. I was invited to a party tomorrow night, and I'm going. And I'm taking my djembe with me. Taking that with me to the party. Peace out.